Hi, welcome to History of the Modern World. We are in week 3. This week we are discussing the Industrial Revolution and the continued development of the Americas through the 18th century. So the first lecture we're going to be focusing on is that of the Industrial Revolution. There are two key concepts that you need to keep in mind during this chapter. First of all, there is basically the introduction or discussion of what the introduction of machinery is going to do to global trade networks and to Europe's economic development. The second factor you also need to remember is the social and political effects of this changing economy, or how this economy is going to be changing society, the political state, etc. There's a major distinction now between Western civilization and everyone else. And we're going to see how this distinction carries over into Russia and Japan. They are concerned over falling behind, particularly how falling behind economically or industrially is also tied to your political influence at home and abroad. And so they're very wide ranging effects. And this is also going to eventually connect us into global imperialism. The Industrial Revolution, Western civilization, is also going to be connecting a great deal with the development of the American nations. Not only is it going to really be determining what their political destiny is going to be, they're also going to be looking back at their European roots as influence. And the Americas are a prime area for Europeans to invest in and continue industrialization. So there's a lot of back and forth between the two. First, I think we need to look at the emerging revolution, exactly what it is that's different about the Industrial Revolution to other sorts of revolutions or other sorts of changes in technology. The reason why certain nations industrialize is because there is an initiative to change their methods of production in order to fulfill the demands of the economy or of society. And one of the best examples is really the cloth industry in Great Britain. The cottage industry and the putting out system, that was a focus on specific craftsmen or family groups that did specific tasks in the home and helped create cloth. And for a while, that was actually economically beneficial for Great Britain. They could get raw materials such as wool or cotton from abroad, or wool, of course, which would be grown in Britain itself, and learn and go through the methods of producing textiles and be able to sell that abroad. And for a while, they were able to keep demand. But as time progressed and there became an even greater demand for cheap cloth in order for home consumption or in order to trade abroad, the home industries were not going to work. There had to be something else, something that could produce these goods even faster. The resources and the environment are also major factors. This raw material is now going to be grown in even greater quantities from the Americas, dyes from Asia, waterways and roads to move goods and communication, fossil fuels to run machines. Woodlands are becoming rather scarce in Europe, or there are woodlands where it's really not cost efficient to harvest from. Coal deposits provide a very easy fuel, and there's plenty of cheap human labor in order to mine these fossil fuels. So let's take a look at the larger picture. One invention or technique tends to encourage another, until this isn't just about transforming production of a few goods, but rather an overhaul of the entire society and of the state. Societies that do not industrialize risk falling behind and into obscurity. And as we're going to see, this is going to become an issue with Spain and Portugal, who are going to be turning over their status of world leader to Great Britain, to France, and to the emerging German states. Because now, what really sets a nation apart isn't necessarily their ability to explore or the riches they always gain from the colonies. It's also coming down to the wealth that the individual nation can provide. And after Spain's wars of independence abroad in Latin America, they're going to lose a great deal of that influence. Communication and transportation are very key important aspects because this is really going to provide a much more close-knit society. The early steam engine certainly seems quaint when they're talking about, oh, you're traveling at 15 miles an hour. But you have to understand that for early 19th century, this means the difference between crawling and now being able to run everywhere you go. So the use of the steam engine, the use of steam power, is actually going to be a major improvement on the transportation they had at this time. It's going to forge better unification in the industrial nations, not only moving goods, moving workers, etc., but it's also going to help provide a closer relationship between government and the general population. But we also have to judge the benefits of industrialization with the consequences. Mass production of goods means a better standing of living, but not always uniform across the board. You are going to have more effective steel tools, farming and machinery, household goods, cast iron stoves as opposed to cooking over an open fire, bright machine cloth rather than homespun, mass-made furniture, housewares, books, leisure activities. But not everyone shares in this bounty. Many individuals are delivering the benefits of industrialization with huge sacrifices. And this is what's bringing our attention now to the new working class. There have been laboring classes before, but for the most part they were in the agricultural field. But as farms become more commercialized, there's really less in the way of the small family farm that happens to provide, as individual craftsmen from the putting out system, from the cottage industries, find themselves out of work, they're going to have to move into the cities and take up these jobs in the factories. Now you have groups such as the Luddites who are definitely protesting what this means for their own welfare. The Luddites very much do blame the machines because it's putting simple craftsmen, skilled craftsmen, out of work. But the Luddite protest ends when this group is executed. It basically, what the execution of the Luddite signals is A, the government or society trying to keep order in the countryside, but it's also an indication, a further indication, that political influence can be bought. Now, this is hardly a new concept, but those who gain influence are the ones who are going to see the benefit of policies. And you have to buy influence with money, and thus it's the middle classes, the upper classes, those who control the means of production, the factory owners, etc., who are really going to be able to have all their fingers in the pie. Also, you do not get paid for being a member of parliament or a member of the Reichstag, etc. So the only ones who can really afford to run for office, to serve office, are those who are wealthy to begin with, who have another source of income. So the worker's perspective is not always really considered.